Hi, welcome to a Curve tutorial video. In this video, we're going to learn how to sync your datasets. And syncing your datasets is the process of keeping them up to date with new records as well as updated records from their sources. So data sync really only applies to base datasets as well as managed datasets. So let's jump in and see how we do that. I'm going to enter a managed dataset called product inventory. And I'm going to click on data sync. And the first thing I'll point out is that data syncs operate on a pull schedule, not a push schedule. You can accomplish a push mechanism by using push API as your connector. And you can also use APIs to push data into any type of data set. So this is a pull mechanism, and it can be based on a simple schedule, right? Every few minutes, hours, daily, all the way up to monthly, or it can be based on a cron job expression. Okay, and you can find examples of cron jobs out there on the web if you want to learn how to use that syntax. Each entity that you have joined into your data set, assuming it's a composite data set, will have a different sync setting, right? So you don't have to have the same sync setting on each entity. And there are reasons why you might want it to be different, but basically you're choosing between a full reload or an append and update, okay? And a full reload will always be enabled, okay? You can always select that, but append and update may not. And that's because append and update relies on two very important attributes configured in your data set. Okay? The first is that we need at least one field that's designated as a unique identifier. That's important because when records need to be updated during a data sync, Curve needs to find exactly the right record to update. And if it's not specific enough, too many records could be updated. A good example is the one I have here, which is I'm joining product to product inventory. Okay? And if, for example, my only unique identifier is product ID, right? Then when I join to the other entity, which is product inventory, right? Product to product inventory, what I might be doing is updating all the product records when what I really want to do is update just one product in one product inventory record. Okay, so it's important that for each entity, you determine whether you need one, two, or more unique identifier columns to establish uniqueness. Okay, that's the point. We need to establish uniqueness of a single record, no matter how many entities are joined together. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing we'll need a date time column. Okay, you just need one. And that date time column is the column that Curve will use to figure out if there are new and or updated records to pull from the last time the system ran the data sync query until now. Okay, and that window can be modified. You can change the start date. The end date is always going to be right now at this moment. So typically, if you have a modified date column, that's perfect, like last updated at, that's also great to use. And again, you should have one per entity because each entity, as you just saw, can have a different data sync schedule. Okay, so we need unique identifiers and we need date times. All right, I'm going to set product ID as the unique identifier for the product entity, and for product entity, I'm going to set the row GUID here, which I know makes this record unique. Okay, so that's my combination. I have a date time column in each entity, So I'm going to go ahead and apply changes. And when you make changes to the unique identifier, that will always require a full reload. And that's because Elasticsearch needs to rebuild the indexes. So I'm going to go ahead and apply and reload. And when it's done, we're going to visit the datasync page. So it's done loading. Here we are in the Analyze tab. I'm going to flip back to the design view. And I'm going to revisit the datasync page. Okay, notice that append and update can now be selected for the product entity as well as the product inventory entity. And now it would like to know which timestamp column to choose. Okay, and you can choose more than one. All right, if you choose more than one, there will be OR logic between them. So I could choose, are there new records greater than or equal to the last pull and now, either from the discontinued date column or the modified date column, okay? I'm just going to use modified date because that's the perfect record to use. Okay, and I'm going to select that for product inventory as well. If you still don't see append and update as selectable or enabled, it's likely because you forgot to apply changes when you set a unique identifier. Remember that changes you make in dataset design mode are always in draft mode until you hit apply. So that may be something that you need to go back and do. And then once you set your data sync schedule, you do need to apply that as well, but that will never require any kind of a reload event, right? You're just committing the sync schedule, right? So a couple more things about the data sync. It is possible that the database time zone that you're querying is not the same as the AWS region where Curve is deployed. If that's the case, you may need to adjust your database time zone so that the query can convert to the right time boundaries when it runs. And as I mentioned before, you can always change the query start time. In case you see a gap that was missed for some reason, you can always move the start time back, but you cannot change the end time. The end time is always right now at this moment. Okay? So here we can set a basic frequency, right? Every hour. Okay? And then to enable data syncs, this is important. You have to turn the toggle on. Okay? Otherwise the data sync schedule doesn't run. Why do we have a toggle? Because we want you to be able to turn the data sync schedule on and off without losing the configuration that you've created here. Okay, so it's kind of like a light switch. Just make sure it's on so that the schedule runs. In order to test the data sync, please don't hit reload data set. That's going to reload the entire data set. All you need to do is hit sync now, and it will run the data sync. And it will generate a log in the activity log for the data set so that you can see what the query generated was and determine whether you've received the right or expected number of records. So as you can see, my data sync started, it finished successfully. The query for the product entity used this time range, and the query for the product inventory table used this time range, and it didn't find any new records. One last thing to mention about data syncs: if your file source, your data set source, is a file upload type or an S3 or blob source, then you do not need a timestamp column because Curve can use the timestamp of the files that are generated in that location to figure out which files contain new or updated records. So that's the one exception to requiring a timestamp. Other than that, that is data sync. Thanks so much for watching.